visit friends, schools in Kefi, Nasarawa State, who are in the gallery to observe the Senate proceedings. We welcome you and we wish you fruitful observations and God's mercies back to your destination. May be seated. We also wish to acknowledge the presence of staff and students of Sheikh Abubakar Gumi Academy in Asoko. They are in the gallery to observe today's proceedings of the Senate. I want to wish them fruitful observations of the Senate proceedings and Almighty Allah's guidance and blessings back to your school. You may be seated. Let us also observe the presence of staff and students of standard basic schools in New Yanya in Nasarawa State, who are in their numbers in the Senate gallery to observe the proceedings of the day. May God bless you, guide you, and take you back to your school safely. You may be seated. Let me, on behalf of our colleagues, observe that yesterday, Monday, 24th February 2025, was the birthday of the Distinguished Senator Ndubweze, and the only professor of warfare in the Senate, in the 10th Senate, Professor Jimo Ibrahim Folorunshu. Prof, together with your colleague, we wish you a very happy birthday. We wish you, on behalf of the Senate, long life, more prosperity, and many more years of service to your fatherland. Congratulations. From Distinguished Senator Abaribe, letter of invitation to senators, reminder. With profound gratitude to God, Distinguished Senator NjenjeMedia Abaribe is inviting distinguished colleagues and wishing to inform you that the government of Abia State is graciously marking the event for him, his 70th birthday celebration. And this will take place on the first day of March 2025. The venue will be the International Conference Center in Abia State's capital, Umuahia, and the time will be 12 noon. Further arrangements have been made for an aircraft to convey distinguished senators to Owerri Airport, and from there to the venue, and back to Owerri Airport, from there back to Abuja. I look forward to sharing and celebrating this special moment in my life with you. He writes. He concludes by thanking distinguished senators for their continued support. Once again, we wish him a happy 70th birthday, and we look forward to attending the event. From distinguished Senator Jimmy David Kuta, invitation to Taraba South Senatorial District Empowerment Program and Wukari Divisional Library Commissioning. It is my singular honor and pleasure to invite distinguished colleagues to grace my 2025 Empowerment Program and the commissioning of Phase 1 of the renovated Wukari Divisional Library, scheduled to hold on Monday, the 3rd day of March 2025, at Government Secondary School, GSS, Wukari, Taraba State. Time will be 10 a.m. This initiative aims to empower my constituents across various sectors by providing essential resources such as vehicles, tricycles, motorcycles, sewing machines, grinding machines, tractors, water pumps, and lots more to enhance productivity and livelihoods. Additionally, the commissioning of the Wukari Divisional Library marks a significant step towards promoting education and knowledge and accessibility to knowledge in my constituency. Your esteemed presence will not only add prestige to this occasion, but will also inspire and encourage the beneficiaries and the people of Taraba South. I look forward to your support and participation as we together foster empowerment, education, and national development. Please accept, distinguished colleagues, the assurances of my highest regards. Signed, Senator David S.U. Jimmy Kuta. I wish him a happy celebration, and I pray that many distinguished colleagues will be able to attend this occasion. Any petitions? Yes, distinguished Senator Njenje Emmanuel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Senator Njenje Emmanuel, representing Edo South Senatorial District, Chairman, Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I have 3 petitions that I will need to submit this morning. The first is the petition from Mrs. Cecilia Oge Okoroman of Green and Center Limited against the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development on long overdue indebtedness of the 160 million naira for work she had done for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. She prays that the Assembly should direct the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to pay the sum of 160 million to her company. The second petition is from Dr. Onyeche J. Odo against the Nigerian Customs Services for allegedly impounding his Lexus car at Ebute Meta in Oja, Lagos State since the 21st of June 2029. He urged the Senate to compel the NIS to replace his vehicle without further delay. The third distinguished colleagues is a petition from Ms. Dorothy Hillary against the management of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, over lopsidedness and discriminatory employment in the agency. She is praying that the Senate directs NIMASA and to actualize her employment by releasing his appointment letter and also to investigate the recruitment process in NIMASA. Mr. President, with your permission, may I submit these petitions?
Yes, you may wish to lay the petitions. The 3 petitions are hereby referred to the Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions to revert to the Senate in 4 weeks. Yes,
Point of order.
Is it point of order petition? Yes, petition.
Yes, Mr. President, I'm Senator Aminu Abbas, representing Adamawa Central. Mr. President, petition by one of my constituents, by name Polycarp Shalmaksha, for illegal dismissal from Nigerian police. He prayed that the Senate intervene for the statement into the Nigerian police. Mr. President, if I'm permitted to submit the petitions.
Is there any to the Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions to revert to the Senate within 14 days? Yes.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, this is Senator Shobuba.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleague, my name is Senator Shobuba Umar, representing Bauchi South. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my point of order is on 4151. Go ahead. Okay. 41. The matter of the discussion shall, if possible, be deferred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sittings, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claims unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. 51. Notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceedings for which notice is required except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is my motions.
Yes. What is give us just a brief summary? A brief summary of what you intend to present.
Okay, Mr. President, thank you very much. My motion is to announce the demise of late distinguished Senator Lawal Yahya Gumau, who served in the 8th and 9th Senate respectively, and he is.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Shobuba had actually mentioned to me the demise of one of my colleagues from his state who has served meritoriously in this August Assembly. Is it the view of the Senate that he be allowed to proceed? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The demise of late Senator Lawal Ahmed Yahya, the Senate notes with grief the demise of distinguished Senator Lawal Yahya Gumau, which occurred on the 21st February 2025 after a brief illness in Abuja, indeed, and Iroko has fallen. Also note that Senator Gumau was born on 29 August 1968. In the course of his educational journey, he obtained a BSc Honors degree from the University of Maiduguri before joining politics. Aware that late Senator Lawal Yahya Gumau was a distinguished senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria who served this country diligently and selflessly in both the 8th and 9th Senate and represented Bauchi South Senatorial District. Also aware that the late senator joined the Senate in 2018 after winning a by-election following the demise of late distinguished Senator Ali Wakili, and was re-elected in 2019 under the platform of All Progressive Congress APC and served until 2023. Recall that before coming to the Senate, he has served in two terms in the Bauchi State House Assembly, a term in Bauchi Assembly from 2003 to 2007, representing Lame constituency, and 2 terms in the House of Representatives, representing the Federal constituency of Bauchi State, from 2011 to 2018, making him a very consummate and astute politician and a legislator. Also recall that Senator Gumau was truly a committed, dedicated, and integrity-inclined personality who exhibited unwavering commitment not only to Bauchi South but also to the Senate and Nigeria, and his representation was impeccable, impactful, and quite fulfilling. Note that his sojourn at the National Assembly for over a decade was greatly marked by significant development as he championed numerous welfare programs for his people, and his advocacy in legislative undertakings genuinely reflected his commitment to the emancipation of the downtrodden, irrespective of their political persuasions or leanings. Also note that Senator Guma was an epitome of democratic excellence, whose political career was blessed with ideals and values of nation building, inclusivity, and fair play amongst the diverse nationalities. He served in Bauchi South and he distinguished himself through transparent and selfless services to humanity and fear of God. Further note that while in the Senate, his legislative contributions were far-reaching and stood him out as a bridge builder and peace setter in Bauchi State. Aware that because of his avowed commitment to his legislative duties, he chaired Senate Committee on Federal Character, Poverty Alleviation and Social Investment, among others. He was also a member of various committees, among which is the Committee of Finance, where he served with senators that were instrumental to the passage of the Finance Bill 2019. And regret that Senator Guma died at the age of 57 when the good people of Bauchi and Nigeria needed him in the most to bring his wealth of experience to bear in the overall development of the country. Accordingly, resolved to 1. Urge the Senate to observe a minute.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Suleiman Abrahman Kaw Sumaila, representing Kano South Senatorial District from Kano, Mr. President. Mr. President, I am here to second the motion heavily moved by my dear colleague and brother, Senator Shehu Buba. After seconding the motion, Mr. President, I am here to condole the immediate family of Senator Gumau, his political associate, and of course the National Assembly. We are with him in 7th Assembly before he joined the Senate. A very consistent, dedicated, focused member of the National Assembly. A grassroots mobilizer. Even in the last general election in 2023, we contested election together with him in the platform of NNPP with then. I commiserated the Senate, I condole. We cherish his commitment to the democracy, a very reliable fellow. We miss him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love him much. We have nothing to say, rather than to say, Allahumma ghafirhu warhamhu wa'afi anhum wa hasin nuzulahu. Allahumma ja'al jannat ma'awahum bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin ya rabbul alamin. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Barrow Jibrin North. I stand to register my condolences to the family of our former colleague, Senator Gumau. The people of the Central District represented, that is the Bauchi South Senatorial Zone, and also the people of Bauchi State, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the entire country, with the loss of Senator Lawal Yahya Gumau. He was our colleague here in the Senate, in the 9th National Assembly, where he served this country through this august Senate in the best manner possible. He was the chairman of the Senate Committee of Poverty and Alleviation, where he did his best to reposition the committee and the nation was able to gain from that. I remember how he was running from pillar to post to make sure that items, irrespective of poverty alleviation, were given to senators and indeed members of the National Assembly to be distributed to their various central zones and constituencies. Not only that, even local governments and state governments were not left behind. They also got so many items that were used to suppress poverty in the entire country. He did very well in that regard. He was an outstanding legislator, a legislator by excellence, who did all he could to promote the Senate of the Federal Republic. Highly religious, he was an activist in the Izala sect of this country. He was part and parcel of those who were moving around in order to strengthen that sect, in order to strengthen the gospel of Allah. Mr. President, the only thing that will take solace, because it's not always easy to lose a friend, to lose a very good friend indeed, a colleague. The only thing is that we always bear in mind that one day, each and every one of us will go. For that reason, I pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow them to rest in perfect peace, to rest in Al-Jannah Firdausi. I so submit, Mr. President.
Is Mr. Mongono?
Mr. Distinguished Senators, my name is Mohamed Tahir Mongono. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. First and foremost, I want to seize this opportunity to condole the family and good people of Bauchi South and indeed the whole of Bauchi State for the loss of Senator Gumau. My path crossed with Senator Gumau in the House of Representatives when we were both members of the House of Representatives before his ascendancy to the Senate in 2017. But before that, he was a member of my committee on agriculture in the House of Representatives, and because of that, we related very closely, and he was a very active member of the committee because of his passion for agriculture, necessitated by the fact that his constituency is agrarian in nature, and therefore took a very active role in the committee with a view to attracting as much as possible dividends of democracy as it concerns agricultural empowerment and agricultural incentives to his constituency. Again, looking at his biodata, one cannot but say that he was a grassroots politician and a politician par excellence, in the sense that he rose through the ranks from House of Assembly, House of Representatives, and then 2 terms in the Senate. This is a clear manifestation of the fact that he was a grassroots politician, and that is what earned him service both at the legislature at the state level and then the 2 chambers at the national level. But our solace and our source of consolation is the fact that he came and he served humanity. And death is a necessary end. Every living soul, not only human beings, every living soul must taste death. Kullu nafsin zalikatul maut. So we pray that Allah will grant him Al-Jannah Firdaus. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, I also was privileged to know distinguished Senator Lawa Yahya Gumai, because I served also in the 8th Senate, and I'm appalled to read of his demise. And I do know that he was a gentleman for excellence. The motion is sponsored by numerous distinguished senators, not just Shoboba, distinguished Senator Barao Jibrin, who also served with him, is there. Distinguished Senator Abdul Nengi is also there. Distinguished Senator Ismail Akaiba is also there. And our elder statesman, distinguished Senator Adamu Alero, and of course, the Senate President Emeritus, distinguished Senator Ahmed Ibrahim Lawa. So, you may wish to say what? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues. I'm Ahmed Ibrahim Lawa, I represent Yobe North Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the late Senator Gumau joined us here in 2017 after the then Senator representing Bauchi South, Malam Anwakili, died. He distinguished himself because he was not a newcomer to the National Assembly. He was in the House of Reps before he went through the by-election, which produced him to fill in the gap. We served in the 8th Senate together, and we served in the 9th Senate, where he served as our chairman, Senate Committee on Poverty Alleviation. That committee is a committee that every senator looks up to, just like the SDG. Because for the first time, probably, we insisted that the National Assembly members must be given some priority, some concession. As we represent the people, we should be able to reach out to our constituents and ask them to participate in the various programs that were then available. And I know how hard he worked at that time with then Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Mr. President, here we are today talking about a one-time colleague and friend that is no more. What we all know, like the previous speakers have said, that death is a necessary end to everyone who comes to this world. Since we can't avoid it, then we have to prepare for it. And one way to prepare for it is to always be guided by what is godly and morally acceptable. One thing that the late senator achieved for us politicians is that he represented another side of politicians. Most people think politicians are simply failures in so many areas, and therefore they found refuge in politics. No more if it was at all in the first place. But the civil Senator Gumau was a deeply religious person, very religious, and could attend every possible national preaching events of the Zala. That's not very common for politicians, but he was able to achieve this. And he had respect for politicians because at least we have people who participate in politics, who are morally upright by the grace of God, and who give us the other side of who we are. Finally, Mr. President, even though this may not be part of the prayers, but I think we need to look at what we did in the 8th and 9th Senate. We should dust that record that provided for many of meeting rooms, auditoriums, probably even the chambers after members of the National Assembly who served. This is entirely in the hands of the leadership of the National Assembly. But I think the time is right that we are able to achieve something like this as it is done elsewhere in the world. Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Let's just take a look at the prayers. Prayer 1, urge the Senate to observe a minute silence in his honor. Those in support of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, Senate delegation to Bauchi State to condole with his family, the government, and the good people of Bauchi State. Those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Point of order. No, this one must take this. Point of order.
So the distinguished colleagues, we invite you guys to observe 1 minute silence in honor of our late and departed Senator Ala-Igbo, who departed before rest in the of the Dow.
Point of order, Mr. President. Point of order, Mr. President. Point of order, Mr. President.
Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is with great sense of responsibility that I also stand under Order 41 and 51 for a motion that is of national importance. Mr. President, if you permit me, Order 41 says that the matter of discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. And Order 41, 51, Mr. President, notice shall not be dispensed with in case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of the senators present. Mr. President, I have to stand to make this motion knowing that one of the motions has been made today. But this is very important because of the urgency of it. Mr. President, in one of my senatorial district areas, there have been establishes and lives, there's various reports of lives that have been lost as a result. As the last count, we heard that about 22 individuals have been killed. And the tension is quite high in that area of Via Northeast and Southwest of Edo South Senatorial District. Given that urgency, Mr. President, I urge you and my colleagues to please permit me to present this motion because of national interest, and if not, only God knows what will continue in that area. That's part of my senatorial district. So, with your permission, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues, may I present my motion?
Distinguished Senator Njenje, we've taken one other under 4151 already. Section 424 says not more than one such motion may be made at the same time during a sitting. So we are in sympathy with the dead, and definitely it's a motion that you should bring. So is it the view of the Senate that they be allowed to present it on the next sitting? Those in support that they be allowed to present it on our next sitting say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So distinguished, you may bring a written motion on our next sitting. Yes, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kakashewu Lawal, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, on the Cooperative Development Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 707. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Cooperative Development Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 707, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Cooperative Development Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 707, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Clan Dickett Sato on the Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 728. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 728, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Federal Medical Centers Act Amendment Bill 2025 SB 728, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Abdul Hamid Malam Medori Ahmed on the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Alteration Bill 2025 SB 729. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Alteration Bill 2025 SB 729, first reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 Alteration Bill 2025 SB 729, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Asuquo Ekpenyong on the Suicide Prevention Bill 2025 SB 730. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Suicide Prevention Bill 2025 SB 730. First reading.
Distinguished colleagues, Suicide Prevention Bill 2025 SB 730. First reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Jimoh Ibrahim Folorunsho on the National Artificial Intelligence Commission Establishment Bill 2025, SB 731. Mr. President, may we to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Artificial Intelligence Commission Establishment Bill 2025 SB 731. First reading.
Distinguished colleagues, National Artificial Intelligence Commission Establishment Bill 2025, SB 731, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. The first order of the day is the presentation and adoption of the Conference Committee report on the Maize Export Bill 2025. Distinguished senators will recall that the Senate and the House of Representatives passed different versions of the Maize Export Bill 2025. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 86. Mr. President, with your permission, I move that the Senate do receive and adopt the conference report. I so move, Mr. President.
Yes,
thank you, Mr. President. I arise to second the motion that the Senate do receive and adopt the report of the Maize Export Bill. I so second.
Yes, those in support that the Conference Committee report be received on this Maize Export Bill 2025, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. May proceed to present the report.
Mr. President, you may wish to invite at this point distinguished Senator Zam Titus Tatenda, Chairman of the committee, to lay and present.
Can you proceed to lay the report? Who's invite me?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Dr. Titus Tatenda. I represent Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Mr. President, I rise to move that the Senate do receive and adopt the report of the Conference Committee on Maize Export Bill 2025. I so move.
So give us a summarized version of the report.
Okay. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, report of the Conference Committee on a bill for an act to prohibit the exportation of maize or its derivatives in large commercial quantities outside of Nigeria and for related matters The Maize Export Provision Bill 2024 was passed by the House of Representatives and the Senate with differences. In consequence thereof, a conference committee was constituted to reconcile areas of differences that appeared in the two versions as passed by both chambers. The conference committee met and observed that the two bills as passed by the two chambers had slight areas of differences. Essentially, the areas of differences were noticed in the long title, clause 1, and the explanatory memorandum of the bill. The committee therefore deliberated upon those areas of differences and harmonized them accordingly. Recommendation. The conference committee hereby recommends for the adoption and approval of the harmonized version of the bill as follows: that the Senate and House do consider and approve the report of the conference committee on the Maize Export Prohibition Bill 2025 as recommended. On behalf of the committee members, I wish to thank the Senate for giving us this privilege to serve the country. Thank you very much, Senate President.
Those in support that the Senate do adopt the conference committee on Maize Export 2025, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, so the committee conference report is hereby adopted. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the second reading of the Medical Physics Regulatory Council of Nigeria Establishment in 2025, SB 301. Distinguished colleagues will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 12 December 2024. Mr. President, may we to invite most distinguished Senator Yisa Ashiru Oyelola to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Deputy Senate President, please approach the chair. Distinguished colleagues, this bill to establish the Medical Physics Regulatory Council of Nigeria. Are we going to also have biological physics, and then we can't even go under dental and dental council of Nigeria? I think that is already established and all that. So specifically medical physics Regulatory Council. I don't think it's something we should go ahead, but if you want to justify why senators should support, it seems that you can go ahead. But setting up a council for medical physics alone, then tomorrow others will come for biological physics, others will come for geographical council, and almost all the science, the items, science. Then you have environmental council. You have so it's really not a good idea to have this. But if you think you have justification, go ahead.
Yeah, Your Excellency, Mr. Senate President, distinguished colleague, I feel very strongly that this aspect of our life, this aspect of medical service is very distinct, and we need to protect ourselves, and by regulating it. It's highly specialized. not only specialized, substantially different from medical profession. And I will seek your indulgence for me to present my bill for second reading on this. I so move, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, in support of my motion, I stand to present debate on Medical Physics Regulatory Council of Nigeria Establishment Bill 2025, sponsored by Senator Ashiru Yelala, representing the good people of Kwara South. Mr. President, my highly respected distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead this debate on a bill for an act to establish the Medical Physics Regulatory Council of Nigeria to be saddled with responsibility of regulating examinations leading to practice of medical physics profession in Nigeria and for related matters. Mr. President, my respected distinguished colleagues, let me use this opportunity to highlight the background of the bill, which I believe will not only justify the laudable legislative initiative, but will also motivate this chamber and indeed the National Assembly to accelerate the legislative process in passing the bill into law. The medical physicist profession applies principle of physics to diagnosis and treatment of human diseases with specific goal of improving human health and well-being. This profession is made up of highly qualified health professionals with advanced postgraduate university degree and specialized clinical training in radiotherapy, diagnostic radiology, specialized nuclear medical or nutrition protection. The medical physicists form part of comprehensive medical teams in radiation medicine. The responsibility of medical physicists include the establishment of adequate protocol to ensure accurate patient dosimetry, the measurement and characterization of radiation, and determination of delivered dose, protection of patients and others from potentially harmful or excessive radiation, advancement of procedures necessary to ensure the quality of medical images, development of quality assurance programs, assistance to other health professionals in optimizing the balance between the beneficial and deleterious effects of radiation. Essentially, Mr. President, medical physicists, clinical practice ensure the safe and effective delivery of radiation to achieve a diagnostic and therapeutic goal. Additionally, Mr. President, medical physicists play a key role in radiation protection, education, and training of healthcare professionals and participate in research and development to improve patient care. Mr. President, my respected distinguished colleagues, without placing the practice of medical physicists under a regulatory body, the application of radiation in medicine could lead to unsatisfactory outcomes, such as patients being underdosed or overdosed, leading to stochastic or deterministic effects, and the success of diagnosis or treatment could be jeopardized. Medical staff and public may also be in danger of unnecessary radiation exposure if medical physicists are not at the post to ensure safety. Mr. President, my respected, distinguished colleagues, there is no law presently regulating the activities of medical physicists professions. The Nigerian Association of Medical Physicists, in its quest to ensure sanity in the practice of medical physicists profession, took it upon itself to regulate the activities of medical physicists practice in Nigeria to prevent incurable damage to the members of public which may arise from its non-regulation. This present bill seeks to give legal backing for the regulation of the practice of medical physicists in Nigeria through the establishment of Medical Physicists Regulatory Council. The objective of the bill, Mr. President, my respected colleagues, the objective of the bill are as follows: secure, under the provision of the bill, the establishment and maintenance of register of persons who are eligible to practice as members of medical physicists profession, and publish from time to time the list of such persons. Issue the appropriate license to qualify members. Determine the standard of knowledge and skill to be attained by persons seeking to become member of medical physics profession. Review and prepare from time to time the code of conduct which the council considers appropriate for the practice of the medical physics profession. Liaise and foster cooperation with international bodies to promote professionalism in medical physics in the country. Approve accreditation of the premises for practice of medical physics, and make a policy for advancement of medical physics practice. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I humbly urge you to pursue the legislative proposal. Thank you for your attention.
This is Senator Mongono.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Mohammed Tai Mongono, I represent Borno North Senatorial District. I'm not a medical doctor, neither do I belong to any segment of the medical profession. But lawyers, being learned men, we are conversant with the nitty-gritty of practice of all professions, and therefore I am eminently qualified to contribute on this subject matter, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished senators, based on my understanding of this bill, is that this bill merely seeks to regulate the practice of medical physics in Nigeria. It's a specialized arm of medical practice, very, very specialized and highly technical in nature, and therefore this bill merely seeks to bring about regulations that will bring the practice of medical physics in tandem with international best practice, and also stamp out quackery in the profession. Because if quackery is not stamped out, it is going to bring a lot of negative consequences to humans that come in contact with those practitioners. And again, Mr. President, distinguished senators, our constitutions allow the freedom of association. So this is a group of Nigerians that belong to a particular profession, and they want to form an association with a view to regulating themselves, stamping out quackery in their profession, bring the practice of their profession in tandem with international best practice to know themselves. And our constitution allows freedom the freedom of association. So based on that, distinguished senators, Mr. President, we should allow this bill to go into second reading without much ado and with the speed of light. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Professor Jimo Ibrahim.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Senate President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. My name is Jimo Ibrahim, representing the very good people of Ondo South from Ondo State. With utmost respect to the leader, one of our very foremost leaders in the Senate, the respect of this bill, who is actually the mover and the owner of this important bill. I want to direct our attention to the fact that we must be guided as Senate. We cannot continue to have duplication of efforts. There are many regulatory commissions in the medical profession. Even as big as the dentist commission profession is concerned, it's even subsumed under medical. So we have medical and dental commission. So why do we continue to have different commissions within the same sector? It's not about whether it's intended or international practice. International practice always says you have multifarious commission inside one sector of the economy. The medical sector is is all important, as Senate President. And just like the last speaker said, yeah, he's a lawyer and I give him a lot of respect. Some of us are also lawyers. I've done 35 years in the legal profession. And I know the implication of continued duplication of efforts. And it's on this note that I think the Senate should be well guided and allow this bill to sleep as it stands. Because there's another time now you will see Medical Laboratory Council, you will see Medical Library Council. There are people that keep the books in medical profession are so important that they should have their own regulatory agency. You will even have Medical Needle, Infection Council. So obviously speaking, there are people that, inject nails, even Medical Blood Transfusion Council will also come, and I think when we do all of this, we create problem to the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as converging complexities come around one legislation or multifarious legislation that you can rather select interpretation. Now, the practical problem is that of the court. I'm going to take that point and conclude, Mr. Senate President.
Are you opposed to this bill or you are for the bill?
Absolutely, I'm opposed to it. I said the bill should sleep.
No problem.
Sleeping means that it should sleep for now and sleep forever. If it's not respectfully withdrawn, I use the guided language that the bill should sleep. And the reason why it should sleep is that it will so create problem of interpretation to judiciary. When you have Data Medical Council, you have Physician Council, you have Medical Council, one regulation in one section will conflict with another section. We are converging complexities within the same section. And I think this bill should respectively, have a nice sleep. And I wish the bill goodbye. Thank you, President.
Well, before we ask the distinguished mover of the bill whether the bill should sleep or be withdrawn, let's say from Senator Njenje, he seems to be in charge because I'm not very conversant with practice, with medical practice. I know that Senator Monguno belongs to my profession, but he seems to be conversant with it.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, I stand up and speak with a heavy heart. A heavy heart because when this particular matter appeared on Wednesday on the audit paper, I left my seat and approached the Senate leadership. I spoke with the Deputy Senate President and the leader of the Senate to look at this particular bill with a view of stepping it down for further legislative instructions. Mr. President, what are we talking about? There is this Nigeria Medical Council. This medical council covers all aspects of medical health, all. And the medical discipline at the count as of today, we have over 30 units of medical disciplines. Now, the question is, why is this bill necessary now? Take your Google medical physics, and it will show you it is something that has to do with nuclear and radiation. For now, how does that affect us? We are not talking about heart. We are not talking about kidney. We are not talking about brain. We are not talking about dental. We are not talking about eyes. We are not talking about orthopedics. These are all arms in medical. And therefore, there is no particular definition of a doctor who is supposed to head this medical association. The radiation technologist or doctor can head this organization. The heart surgeon can head this organization. The kidney surgeon can head. So there is no particular inhibition by this organ of this under the medical that will necessitate the introduction of this. And the question that arises, Mr. President, why is the inhibition by the medical physics? Why? Have they reported to the sponsor, who is a very close friend of mine, that they have been inhibited? Why is it so special? How special is the medical physics, amongst other things, distinguishing them from other medical sciences? What is so special between them and heart and kidney and this thing that requires this particular regulation as an independent entity? If we want as a country, we can have about 30 units of independent regulators. We can have heart regulators, kidney regulators, brain regulators, ear regulators, nose regulators, blood regulators, and so on and so forth. And all of them will be an independent entity. And therefore, when you do that, how does the federal government, looking at the reality of our economic situation now, begin to cater for these regulators? Recall, the federal government is still battling with the Orisanya report. So I think, rather than this bill sleeps, rather than it sleeps, it will come in handy, maybe in the future. So we just step it down. My take is that step it down. Let the mover consult more and give us the reasons why we will pass the bill. But so far, like I said, I didn't want this bill appeared and then debated. I want it to step down so that, because it's a principal officer, it's a convention. Usually when a principal officer brings a motion or a bill, you let it go, you allow it. And then if you want to do anything in the committee, you do it. But I think it is essential that, in my opinion, that rather than put the question, Mr. President, I will crave the indulgence of Senator Ashiru to step down this bill so that we look at it again. For some of us, they are ready to help out.
Well, let me, the distinguished Senator Ashiru, personally, I had given you an idea, but you said you have genuine reasons why you want this council to be set up. And he has even further broken it down to Medical Kidney Council of Nigeria, Hematology Kidney of Nigeria, Medical Pathology something of Nigeria. So really, it's almost like a specialized field, having a council. So let's not waste time. Distinguished colleagues, those in support that this bill be downread a second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. Leader of the Senate.
They don't.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is the second reading of the e-gaming bill 2025 SB 91. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Tuesday, 26 September 2024. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Distinguished Senator Karimi Sunday Steve to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Karimi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Karimi Sunday Steve. I represent the people of Kogi West. I hereby move that a bill for an act to establish the National E-Gaming Agency and its governing boards charged with the responsibility of managing and regulating the national e-gaming industry in Nigeria with a structural approach to the administrative modulation of remote gaming conducted at the national or interstate basis and for related matters 2025 be read for the second time. Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, permit me to lead the lead debate on the bill for an act to establish the e-gaming bill. This bill was read for the first time in this Alo chamber on Tuesday, 26 September 2024. The bill seeks to establish the National E-Gaming Agency to protect its cyberspace and regulate all online gaming. You will agree with me that the rapid growth of online gaming presents significant cybersecurity threats, including cyber fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and cyber terrorism. Therefore, there is need for a legislation to provide for a proper regulation and oversight of online gaming platforms, which can be exploited for illicit financial transactions and recruitment channel for criminal activities by both national and international interest group, organization, or country. The Senate will record that on the 22nd November 2024, the Supreme Court nullified the National Lottery Act pursuant to a suit filed by Lagos State government and held that the states have power to legislate over lotteries in their states. As it is now, there is no law in place by the federal government to control e-gaming in the country. However, the decision of the Supreme Court is limited to physical lottery activities and does not take into cognizance online gaming activities which occur within the cyberspace of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, an area within the exclusive legislative competence of the National Assembly.
by virtue of item 67 of the exclusive legislative list. Accordingly, this bill repeals the National Lottery Act of 2005 and enact e-gaming legislative framework to prevent cyber security threats and ensure revenue generation from online gaming. The National E-Gaming Agency contemplated in this bill will be dedicated to e-gaming regulating agency that will help to monitor and regulate the industry by ensuring that e-gaming platform implement strong cyber security measures, data protection policy, and compliance with financial regulations. Additionally, the agency will collaborate with law enforcement such as Economic and Financial Crime Commission, the National Financial Security Intelligence Unit, and the Office of the National Security Advisor to detect and prevent cyber crimes linked to online gaming, thereby strengthening Nigeria's digital security and safeguarding its citizens from cyber threats. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, this proposed legislation in view of the wide coverage of the cyberspace has the potential of generating massive revenue to support development of strategic projects of intervention across the country, as it is done in other jurisdictions of the world. Having this in mind, the bill also contemplates to establish e-gaming trust fund for remittance and utilization of offline gaming for developmental strides in line with best practices. The utilization of the proceeds from this fund will target projects and sectors such as security and public safety, access to improve through quality healthcare services, promotion of sustainable agricultural practice and food supply, sports and youth development / empowerment, advancement of education and skills development, access to clean water and sanitation, provision of social services and welfare programs, climate change mitigation and adaptation, disaster management, and provision of humanitarian services. Flowing from the aforesaid, you will agree with me, my distinguished colleagues, that the imperativeness of this proposed bill in the current dispensation of globalization cannot be overemphasized. Therefore, I urge you all to support the expeditious passage of this bill in view of the socio-economic advantage and regulation of the entire cyberspace to safeguard and preserve our national core values and norms. Finally, in compliance with Order 7.6 of the Senate Standing Order 2023 as amended, a compendium of the financial implication of the establishment of the e-gaming agency is hereby attached. This bill is co-sponsored by distinguished Senator Ningi, distinguished Senator Sunaso, distinguished Senator Oji Sokalu, distinguished Senator Kau, and the Deputy Senate President. Thank you, sir.
It's not the number of sponsors that will allow us to approve. So don't intimidate us. Let's just look at it. But let me hear from the expert on ICT. Zaz, Undersecretary.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to speak about this bill. If I'd had the previous insight into this bill, I probably would have discussed this privately with distinguished Senator brothers Karimi. However, it appears to me that this bill may also suffer the fate of the bill that we have just considered. To have a deep sleep in our womb. I will explain very shortly. If this bill is just about leader, Mr. President, it does appear that I either require your protection or I need to consult very briefly, and then I'll come back because
the major thing there is that I'm not into gaming. So whether you consult or you don't consult, it's the same thing. The Senate president is already indicating his interest in this gaming. Maybe he has a company that is doing it.
I don't have interest. Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me.
The gaming is the one on online. No?
I don't engage in gaming. I'm not a gambler. I don't gamble. I don't do that. But let me commend Senator Karimi for showing rare legislative insight.
So wait, before you go there, does Senator Karimi really understand what he's talking about? That's you are talking about online what?
Gaming.
Online gaming is currently not captured by the current law. The current lottery law does not capture online game, online betting.
I have the floor. I'll save you.
No, wait. I'm saying the current law doesn't capture. No. You have use your microphone now. Does the current act capture online gaming?
No. And also, sir, even the act on lottery.
Don't you think we should withdraw it and then investigate?
No,
I'm coming. I'm saying instead of us rushing it, don't you think we should withdraw it and check whether the current lottery act captures?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that we can be guided. Yes, sir. We need to be guided, sir.
Okay.
Mr. President, Karimi has to be commended for his legislative insight in bringing forward this bill. Why do I say so? Now, the Supreme Court ruled on 22nd November 2024 that the National Lottery Act was null and void. Now, it stated clearly that every state has the latitude to legislate on what goes on in terms of lottery in that state.
Take it easy. That is where I was coming to. The Supreme Court's latest decision is that the National Lottery Act is null and void, and that any state, particularly using the houses or assemblies, have a right to go into regulating their what do you call it, their lottery, which sometimes is almost sometimes what do you say? Huh?
Fiscal lottery. Call it fiscal lottery.
I didn't hear you.
Fiscal lottery.
I'm saying that is fiscal lottery now. This one is e-lottery.
Yes.
Is e-lottery. It's not the same thing as e-gaming. E-gaming is like e-lottery. So I say with the latest Supreme Court decision, going further with this.
Allow him now. Allow him now. See.
Okay.
Order. Just continue.
Okay. No, what I'm saying is that the Supreme Court recently gave a judgment that the National Lottery Act is null and void, and decided that lottery should belong to states. They gave concurrence legislative powers, and not exclusive legislative powers to the National Assembly, right? So it's non-concurrent, the state. And so what you want to do now is we should start our own. The other one you said was physical lottery, and the Supreme Court shut it down. We should now start with e-lottery, so that we now explain to the Supreme Court that in view of that we have a provision that they can also do their own law in the state. But we have forgotten that any law that is made by the National Assembly is superior to the state, to the law made by the state, and any provision therein that is in conflict with any law made by the National Assembly is null and void to the extent of the inconsistencies. So why do we suddenly revive a dead act? But if you feel that you want to, I think my own opinion is that we should actually attempt to withdraw it and then study the national. Am I right? That we should study the recently voided act and then study the Supreme Court decision before we run into another issue. So,
yes.
So
Okay. What I'm saying, while I agree with your opinion, I want to say that a lot of interests have been put into crafting this bill. And the normal tradition, normally, we don't want to kill the psyche or the zeal of senators who have put their energy together.
Even if it's in contravention with the Supreme Court decision.
I'm coming. You see, what he has done here, he has shown rare legislative innovation by looking at the entire space and seeing that the cyber gaming activities are not covered by our current law. And that was saying, so that government will not lose revenue. So to that extent, I think I agree with you, but we should allow this bill go. And then the committee, and of course, maybe we add Committee on Legal Matters. Let them conjointly look at the entire thing so that they can come with their opinion. We try to not throw the baby with the bathwater.
That's what I was talking about.
So let the bill go, and then jointly, with your powers as the Senate President, allow the joint committees to now look at it and report. It's not the end of it. It's a work in progress.
No. DSP, approach the chair. Chairman Judiciary, please say something.
Thank you, Mr. President. Adeni Adegbomire, Ondo Central. Mr. President, I think that we need to first properly situate the judgment of the Supreme Court. And my view is that what the Supreme Court had said is that you really cannot make a federal law to regulate lottery. Whatever you call it, e-gaming, physical gaming, is the same thing. What they call e-gaming is an aspect of. Let me hold on for Mr. President to finish consulting.
Distinguished colleagues, I think we should not debate it in front of the Senate President. We should rather listen to the expert opinion from the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Because my opinion was that it could be withdrawn, and then we study the Supreme Court decision to know whether it's that. Okay, I'll put the question. No, I'll put the question.
Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order. Point of order.
The chairman, with due respect, chairman, legal matters and judiciary, the mover of the bill has approached the chair that in view of the Supreme Court decision, that he would like to go and study the decision. So let's hear from him. And by the way, Senator Karimi,
thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Karimi, the Deputy Senate President said he's not a co-sponsor of this bill. That in case you study it and it turns out to be in contravention of the Supreme Court decision, the Deputy Senate President, Senator Senator Baraj Jibril, has distanced himself from this bill. So your observation is noted. So, Senator Karimi,
thank you, Mr. President.
Do the needful.
Following your guidance and the mode of the Senate, I want to withdraw this bill for further consultation. Thank you, sir.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Karimi, the mover of the bill, has requested that this bill be stepped down for further consideration. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. Karimi, you now know your friends. Senator Ababoro is saying I should put the question so that this bill can rest in peace. So the ayes have it. The bill is hereby stepped down.
Bill is sleeping.
Leader of the Senate. Distinguished colleagues, please, not all the bills should rest in peace.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the second reading of the National Eye Center Ochadamu Kogi State Establishment Bill 2025 SB 589. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 9th October 2024. Mr. President, you may wish to invite most distinguished Senator Jibril Issa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Issa Jibril.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibril, representing the very good people of Kogi East. Mr. President, I want to thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to lead this debate. But before I continue, I just want to go down the memory lane to state that this bill actually went through all the rudiments at the 9th Senate, but was denied assent by Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate of this very important bill, which seeks to establish the national, it's actually national, not federal, the National Eye Center of Shadamu, to take over staff, assets, and liabilities of the Holy Memorial Hospital of Shadamu, Kogi State, for the prevention and cure of eye defects and diseases, and to establish a board to govern the center and an academic committee to take charge of the center's academic affairs and for related matters. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 9th October 2024. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Kogi East Senatorial District, where the center is proposed to be sited, comprises 9 local government areas: Ankpa, Basa, Dekina, Ibaji, Ida, Igalamela, Dolu, Ofoloma, Boro, and Omala, with a population of over 2 million. The Holy Memorial Hospital, Ochadamu, which is a missionary hospital, was founded in 1948 in response to the needs of those suffering from leprosy. Subsequently, eye care became an integral part of the hospital due to the prevalence of eye diseases and related complications in the area. The eye care that was introduced into the program of the hospital is the only eye center in Kogi East, rendering services to patients within the state and neighboring states. However, this hospital is faced with a myriad of challenges such as shortage of ward accommodation, insufficient clinical area, under-equipped theater, and power challenges. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the centrality of the proposed National Eye Center to the overall health of the citizens is underscored by a recent study on visual challenges in Kogi State, which found that 128,000 citizens have severe visual disorders and about 8,500 are blind, a situation attributed to various factors. The study found cataract, the commonest cause of severe visual impairment and blindness, being responsible for 45.3% and 43% respectively. Furthermore, glaucoma, which is an optic neuropathy that presents with a characteristic optic disc damage and visual field defect with intraocular pressure as one of the modifiable risk factors, has led to several cases of irreversible blindness in the Senatorial District. This is in addition to other conditions such as corneal scarring and uncorrected refractive errors found to be among the major causes of blindness and visual impairment in the Senatorial District. Distinguished colleagues, the proposed National Eye Center will afford opportunities for early detection and treatment of various eye defects, including age-related macular degeneration citizens, which is important and cost-effective. Visual screenings and eye exams can help detect these eye diseases while they are still treatable, ultimately stopping or avoiding vision loss. This makes establishment of the center indispensable for maximum eye care in Kogi State and the environment. It is very important, as experts have advised, that individuals who are 60 years and above should have a complete periodic eye examination with follow-up examinations as indicated by their ophthalmologist. On this note, continuation of routine schedule of eye examinations is necessary to achieve good visual health. Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, may I emphasize here that the structures and necessary facilities for the takeoff of the center are already in place at the current Holy Memorial Hospital of Chadamu. Consequently, only an upgrade of the facilities will be needed for full specialized operations of the center. This implies that the financial burden on the government for the establishment of the center will be moderate. May I also inform my most distinguished colleagues that the operators and management of the Holy Memorial Hospital of Chadamu are in full support of this bill. I therefore urge Mr. President and my respected colleagues to support the second reading of this bill to facilitate the prevention and treatment of eye disorders, to enhance right to life and personal dignity of the Senatorial District and Kogi State generally, as well as some of the neighboring states in Nigeria, as enshrined in Chapter 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, distinguished Senator Abamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Senator Abamoro. Mr. President, I rise to support that this bill be read a second time based on its vitality and the vitality of the center that is proposed to be established. And secondly, Mr. President, in line with our practices here, this bill is a very straightforward bill, an establishment bill, and anchored on the fact that an existing facility is there for the easy takeoff of this center. Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to support this bill to be read a second time. Mr. President, the eye is a very vital organ of the body, and even here, to easily demonstrate this vitality, if you close your eyes for 2 minutes, now you will think that the world is coming over you. And so, Mr. President, much more importantly, I recall that in the part of the country where I stay, Benue State, most of the time we have to go all the way to the eye center in Kaduna. for treatment of eye problems and visual problems. And so I think an existing one in North Central here, very close to all parts of Nigeria, is very vital. Mr. President, I think that we don't need too much debate on this matter, given that it is very, very important for us to have as many eye centers as we can in this country. If you recall, all the establishment bills so far, none has essentially dealt with the eye. And so I think this is the first of its kind, and we should all support it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Izunaso.
Thank you very much, Mr. President of the Senate. My name is Osita Izunaso. I also rise to support this bill. This is a very important bill, Mr. President. As you will recall, I run one of the biggest foundation for persons with disability. I had one of my members from Kogi State that became blind at the age of 13. And I now asked him, the man is 42 years today. I asked him, what happened to you? He said he had an eye problem when he was 13. They took him to a hospital that is not dedicated to the eye. And they put drug in his eye. 2 days after, the man lost his sight at the age of 13 years up to today. He's 42 now. And there's nothing we have not done to see if we can repair the sight. So I want to thank Senator Jibril Issa for bringing this motion, because it's an existing facility. And the owners of the facility have accepted that government can take it over. So eye is very sensitive. It is not something that we should play with, because early detection of glaucoma can be cured. Cataract surgeries, once it's dictated and done, the person is free. But if you allow it to drag, even ordinary cataract can lead to blindness. So I think I will support this motion. And I've looked at the financial compendium. It is nothing to write home about, because it's only talking about uplifting the existing facility. And that hospital will not only take care of Kogi State, Benue will be involved, Niger will be involved, even Enugu State will be involved, because it is nearer to come to Kogi from Enugu than even from Benue. So I believe that it is something that we should all support. I so move, Mr. President.
Well, distinguished colleagues, there is a very compelling argument that even the 9th Senate, our colleagues have scrutinized this and passed it. And the only problem is that it was not assented to for it to become an act of parliament. So my colleagues in the 9th Senate, having looked at this, even the arguments here do not need much. So I'll just put the question. Those who support that this bill be down the second time, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the National Eye Center, Ochadam, Kogi State, and for related matters, 2025 SB 589, second reading.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the National Eye Center, Ochadamu, in Kogi State, and for related matters 2025, second reading taken. This bill is now referred to the Committee on Health, Secondary and Tertiary to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate, I want to just thank distinguished Senator Issa Jibril for bringing this up, and thank my colleagues for their contributions. You notice there was no dissenting voice at all, because health is wealth, and early detection of eye problem can avoid future blindness. So, and I know that we shouldn't just support it; we should follow it up in the public hearing and do our best to follow it up with the president, because this will be very essential for the good people of not just Kogi State, not just the North Central region, not just Enugu State, but the whole of the country, to have this kind of modern eye center located in that place. So I congratulate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, we have gone far with the orders of the day, but at this point, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I would like to move that we step down the
last item
on the agenda, which is the remaining order of the day, to another legislative day to allow us deal with some other matters of public importance. I so move, Mr. President.
Yeah, the minority leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion that we step down any other items on the other paper to enable the Senate to consider other issues of legislative national importance. I so second.
The motion has been moved and seconded that the last item be stepped down to the next legislative day. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Matter is hereby stepped down. Guys, leader of the Senate.
Point of order.
Yes, Senator Adaramudu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to penitently come on under order 1B. Without taking much time of the Senate, I will not go into the expletives of reading through. And I'm very sure that my colleagues are well attuned to this order. I'm coming under this order as Senate spokesperson. And I think I have been given this privilege to do an explanation of some goings on in the Senate. Precisely on February 28th, last week. Actually, I'm very pertinently for that matter.
Just read the order that you are talking about. Are you coming under privilege or coming under? Because any senator can rise at any point in time under order 10,
yes,
where the senator feels that his privilege is breached. But if you are coming under order
1B,
yes,
in all cases not provided for in this standing order, in all cases not provided for in this standing order, or by seasonal or other orders or practice.
Order 10 says any senator may rise at any time to speak upon a matter of privilege suddenly arising, and shall be prepared to move a motion without notice.
As conscientiously guided, I want to join order 10 with this order. Thank you, Mr. President. And distinguished colleagues.
Distinguished colleagues, Senator Adaramudu approached me a few minutes ago and brought up a matter that concerns the dignity of the Senate. And he said he would like to come under order 1B and under order 10 that talks about privilege. So is it the view of the Senate that they be allowed to proceed? Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. Like I was explaining, precisely last week, Thursday, February 20, there was what the media called drama on the floor of the chamber, which the senators will call a kind of procedural infraction. Like I said also, that I was seriously impassioned to speak on this because the Senate actually got a bloody nose throughout last week over this issue. And it bordered seriously on the orders of proceedings in the Senate. And we know that orders, the standing orders in the Senate, is the Senate's catechism And this is what rules the Senate, because we are ruled by rules, laws, statutes, and orders. This extreme intransigence and obduracy drew a lot of public comments. Majority of those comments very negative for the Senate. And precisely it happened to one of our colleagues, that's Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, who, against Order 6 of our standing order, whereby the Senate President is variously and particularly strengthened by the statutes to allocate seats to senators. And we know that within the Senate chamber, a senator can be allocated any seat. And since no senator is allocated a seat outside the Senate chamber, we think that the Senate President is in order in this wise. But like I said, that the infraction degenerated to the extent that our colleague disagreed in order to stand by the orders of the Senate while raising a point of order. And we know that when you are in the Senate or in the legislation, when you are not in order, you cannot raise a point of order. You have to be in order to ask for order. As this was not enough, the media trolled the Senate variously and precariously from that Thursday. And I, as the spokesperson of the Senate, I had to go about trying to mend those broken pieces of the images and integrity of the 10th Senate, which I think should not have happened. And like I said, I reiterated that the Senate is not for skit making. It's not for content creation, whereby we show off before cameras, for the media to take pictures, take shots, snapshots, TikTok, and so on and so forth. And then we exhibit so that we can play the other dog, and then the general public, who might be very oblivious of the guiding rules of the Senate, can poo-poo the Senate. So this brouhaha went on up till today. And I know, because as we are here, some media houses are still even inviting me to come and explain off further what transpired. But, Mr. President, my hunch is not whether a senator can raise any issue within the chamber, because we know we enjoy absolute privilege. But absolute privilege is not absolute disobedience. We know that one. I just want to behold my colleagues that the popular saying that as you lay your bed, so you shall sleep on it. Are we laying this bed very well and decently for us to sleep very well, have very good dreams for Nigeria? We are all here, 109 of us, Mr. President and my colleagues, sent to this place by our constituents for 3 major reasons: to make laws for the good governance of Nigeria, to advocate for our constituencies, various ones for that matter, and to do oversight functions of the MDAs. And anything outside this, we look at it as privileges, not only the sitting arrangement in the Senate. And we all subscribe to the leadership of the 10th Senate under Senate President, Senator Godwin Obot Akpabio. And like what I experienced, the whole thing, some people, a section of the public, are now narrowing it to Mr. Senate President versus a senator, which is not so. Because our guiding rules, which is our testament and our catechism, our own Bible and our own Quran, which we all subscribe to religiously, embodies and epitomizes the whole Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Any action against it is an action against the Senate. It's not an action against the Senate President. Mr. President, sir, we were told when we were growing up as toddlers that where there is no law, there's no sin. But we have laws. Then it means that any contravention of that law is a sin. And where there is sin, there must be penalty. And where there is penalty, we expect penitence. And going further, it's not about the sitting arrangement only. We are made to believe about, to see expletives being rained on the leadership of the Senate, on the allocation of committees, which dividendly we ask. We have been voted for in our constituencies as chairmen or committee members. No. We have our primary assignment, secondary and tertiary assignment. These are just auxiliary assignments. Mr. President, I don't want to take too much of our time explaining myself off. Explaining myself off. But, like I said, I want the leadership of the Senate to stand by the rules. And when infractions are being committed, because we can see a liturgy of it, that some people have done it before, nothing happened. Some other people are taking it. I, as your spokesperson and an image maker, when an image is broken beyond recognition, then to make that image become very Herculean, almost impossible. And so for me, I'm just, without submitting a report, which I will still do later, want to thank my colleagues and the President of the Senate for giving me this opportunity to present to you the happenings in the Senate and outside the Senate in the past 6 days. Dear colleagues, I shall submit. Thank you very seriously. My prayers. I want to pray. Yes, major prayer. I should not pray any prayer. Yes. It's not a substantive motion. I want to metamorphose.
If you don't have any prayer, it means you have not moved any motion. Okay, you've reported to us. Okay, so Senator Jim Ibrahim.
Thank you very much, Mr. Senate President.
Let's hear from him.
My very distinguished colleagues, in supporting Senator Daramodu, I want to emphasize that the integrity of the Senate cannot be compromised. This is the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And like you said in the morning, even at the Constitution, Section 1, Subsection 2, any act of even National Assembly that is inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is void to the extent of its inconsistency. So any behavior, any act or omission of any senator that stand inconsistent with the provision of the Red Book, our guideline, is void and of no effect. And as a matter of fact, the men in chambers are people of integrity. Mr. Senate President, I am very privileged to be here as a senator to meet very distinguished names that I've been hearing on the front of newspapers. So, Mr. Senate President, the men that are seated here are men of integrity, and their names are protective. Even yourself, Your Excellency, you serve as governor for 8 years. You have been minister. You have been conferred with national honors. So this integrity cannot be destroyed in one day. And like I said, I quoted you this morning. You said any act of parliament that's inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution is to the extent of its consistency void and of no effect. Attorney General of Bender State and Attorney General of Federation. Any behavior, any act or omission of any senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that is inconsistent with the Red Book is to the extent of its consistency void and of no effect. And we owe the public a duty of explanation, which I think Adramodo has formulated and distilled very well. It's not an emotional matter. And we have very many committees in the Senate that handle issues like this. The ethics committee is there. We could refer matters like this to them to give us better diagnosis of the issue and what we can do in accordance with our rule. I'm not above the law of the Senate. And like I said, I am very privileged, and I mean it, to come to this floor of the Senate and see men of integrity, honor here that dignify the chamber. The chamber is not about you alone, Mr. Senate President. It's about everybody. And sitting arrangement is something that is not even too significant. I am at the back seat, but I can lend my voice. In fact, Mr. Senate President, the former Senate President, very distinguished Senator Ahmed Lawal, is at the very back seat after my own. Look at my own seat. Look at his own seat. And he's not complaining. He will raise up his hand with respect here, and will still go there to bow for his respect because he's a man of integrity. So why can somebody say, can anybody be at the back seat more than him here? I am not against Natasha. I'm not for anybody. I'm just saying that the Senate is an institution, and that institution needs to have at its dashboard integrity as number one driving force in the dashboard of the Nigeria Senate. And our Senate President must be respected. Let me say lastly, the Senate President government, as far as I know, is dwell in the thesis of liberalism, cooperation and collaboration. And you cannot take this one away from the Senate President. That is his trait and taxonomies and behavior. But there is extent to this collaboration and cooperation in the face of the Red Book. I challenge you, Mr. Senate President. Your collaboration and cooperation as a liberalist, which I know you of, in the face of the Red Book supersedes whatever liberalism you want to advocate in the floor of the Senate. So I support my very distinguished colleague, and I think matters like this should be handled by Ethics Committee. Thank you.
Leader, you closed the discussion, but Senator Karimi said he has an observation to make. Okay, sorry. Senator Karimi, the leader of the Senate, says what he wants to say is an overriding observation.
I thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this respect and honor, and I'm not taking it for granted. Mr. President, this is one of those moments that I would love to stand up to make a general appeal to our colleagues. To begin with, Mr. President, be rest assured that you have our vote of confidence as a Senate, because this is not about you. This is about us as an institution. This is about our rules and procedure, our practices and convention, and parliamentary tradition that we are sustaining in this place. So,
you just said something now. Please,
yes.
Just a minute. Those in support of the statement of the leader that the Senate President has the support and the love of the entire 10 Senate, say aye. Aye. And those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the Senate leader, whatever you say is from the pulpit.
Well, thank you.
Continue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the reason I'm standing up to speak at this time, early enough, is that there is no one of our colleagues here who does not have an opinion on this issue. Whether they even speak out or not, everybody has an opinion. But we are all united on one thing. Our rules must be respected, because that is what binds us together. People who serve for 8 years as governor, chief executive in states, people who serve as honorable ministers of this federal republic, and they will still go to the nooks and crannies of their villages and constituencies to go and contest election, to come to this hallowed chamber. It is because there is something about the Senate. And under our watch, we are not going to allow this institution to be discredited. We are not going to leave behind, for those coming after us, an institution that is any weaker than what we inherited. So when it comes to protecting the integrity and credibility of this institution, no one takes it for granted. Let me also make it clear to members of public that the whole simi ulabalu about one of our colleagues, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, being asked to move to another seat, is nothing that has to do with gender, is nothing that has to do with hatred, is nothing that has to do with any form of malice. For the record, let me say again, distinguished Senator Adamu Alero, who had been governor for 8 years, who had been honorable minister, and who is one of the most ranking senators in this Senate today, was asked to move his seat. And he didn't make any issue out of it. We had a reason to change the seat of His Excellency Distinguished Senator Aminu Waziri Tambuwa. He didn't make any issue out of it. Senator Jarigbe, who had a reason to move his seat, he didn't make an issue. Senator Wadada, we moved his seat. He didn't make an issue out of it. That's on the minority side. On the majority side, we had reasons to move the seat, change the seats of the likes of Senator Wamako, obviously one of the most ranking senators here, two-time governor before. He didn't make any issue. Senator Olamilekon will change his seat. Senator, that's the chairman of appropriation. Senator Adetokunbo Abiru will change his, and several other people here. And the part of the reason that necessitated our recent decision to change seat was because at least 3 people, 3 distinguished colleagues, had moved from the minority aisle to the majority aisle. First was distinguished Senator Ifeanyi Uba of blessed memory. And then Senator Ezenwa Francis Oyewuchi moved. And then lately, distinguished Senator Ned Nwoko moved. All of this necessitated a change in our sitting arrangement because we needed to readjust. Of course, I understood why distinguished Senator Adaramodu would be concerned. He's our image maker, he's our spokesperson. And most of all listened to the interview that distinguished Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan granted unberekete. She exercised her right to speak. But the question was about the contents of what she said, whether it was the truth or not. Sir, we have a committee that is in charge of how much of a strength of character we display as elected members of this Senate. How much of respect to the rules of this Senate that we display. That is the Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition. That committee has a responsibility not only to investigate whatever alleged, refusal to obey our rules or display of lack of strength of character, but the committee also has a responsibility to ensure that the privileges of the affected senator are also protected. And it is important that rather than us sitting here to debate this issue, that we just allow this matter, most respectfully, to be referred to our Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition, so that the committee can deal with this issue and probably in a week or two come back to us. And that will form the basis of our further debate and action on this matter. What Senator Adaramodu presented was a general report. and he had to come under order 1B because he was not on the other paper for today, and he did it well. But it was not for him to make any prayer. It was not a substantive motion that he was bringing. He has laid his report before us. I beg most respectfully, let's refer this matter to our Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petition, and they will get back to us so that right after this, we can go into an executive session and discuss other issues of public importance. But on this matter, I pray that we do not debate it any further. Let's just refer it to the appropriate committee. I so submit.
Well, distinguished colleagues, the Senate leader more or less has finally arrived at a motion before us that we should refer the entirety of the saga to our Ethics Code of Conduct and Public Petitions to revert back to us. But let me just read this for the record. I'm sitting today as Senate President. Tomorrow I will not be here. One day I will not be here. Another person will be here. I was a member of the 8th Senate. Today I'm a member of the 10th Senate. I believe strongly it's only God that knows who will be a member of the 9th Senate, or the 11th Senate, 12th Senate. The institution remains. Even as I'm talking now, Senator Buhari knows that the rule allows the senator to sit anywhere, but if you need to make contribution, you must go back to your seat. And part of maintenance of order from the presiding officer is that where a particular senator perambulates too much around the Senate, you recognize him to speak. So most times, that senator, I won't mention the name, will have to run from here straight to his seat because he knows the rule. He knows the rule. He knows the rule that he has to speak from his seat. Even the first time the issue came up here, our distinguished sister was not even speaking from her seat. And that was when we tried to call her to order. I think part of the problem is when people come from court-declared senators, they miss the orientation. The management of the National Assembly is hereby ordered to organize periodic orientation, particularly for senators who are midstreamers, who can midstream and did not start when their colleagues started. Because I remember that this particular senator, on the day she was sworn in, raised her hand to speak. I was scared, but I had to recognize her because I was saying, you just gave her the rule book. Part of what we give to you when you are sworn in is a standing order of the Senate. So I said, has she even opened the rule book to know what she's going to say? But she made the contribution on that day. I think 2 days later, she brought a motion. There's nothing wrong in being vibrant, but there's a lot wrong when you don't know anything about the procedure. You can't be a Reverend Father and go and start the church service with communion. You must lay foundation. So let me refer you to section 66 of our rule book. Section 66, subsection 1. It says, the president of the Senate or the chairman, maybe while sitting as chairman of committee of the whole, after having called the attention of the Senate or of the committee to the conduct of a senator who persists in irrelevance or tedious repetition, either of his own arguments or of the argument used by other senators in debate, may direct him to discontinue his speech. So even when you are talking, the Senate President has a right to ask you to discontinue your speech. And then section 66(2) says, if such a senator refuses to resume his or her seat, this is the first time the rule book is even referring to her. The President of the Senate, or in the case of sitting as chairman of committee of the whole, shall order such a senator whose conduct is grossly disorderly to withdraw immediately from the Senate during the remainder of that day's sitting. The President of the Senate shall order such a senator to withdraw in the event that he views her conduct or his conduct to be disorderly for the remainder of that day's sitting. And the Sergeant at Arms shall act on such orders, or he may receive from the chair in pursuance of this. All the Senate President will do is to order that senator to stop talking. And if that senator persists, then the Senate President will now say, withdraw for the remainder of the day. Please leave the chambers. And then he doesn't even need to call on the Sergeant at Arms. It is the job of the Sergeant at Arms to immediately enforce that order. Now, I want to take us to section 55. I don't want to go down. You go through that section 66, you'll see others. But look at 55. Behavior of senators in the Senate. This one is a general thing. We must read this when given to us. It's like a Bible in the church. It's like a Quran in the mosque. At the entry, or let's say, during a sitting, that is section 55(2), all senators shall enter, 55. All senators, during a sitting, all senators shall enter or leave the Senate with decorum. It means that the sanctity of the Senate must be maintained. And please go through it. You'll see what is expected of a senator. You can't even cross the floor during sittings. You can't chew chewing gum during sittings. You can't make phone calls during sittings. You cannot even drink water in the chamber during sittings. You can't pass between chairs. At the point of putting a question during sitting, no senator can step out of the chamber. When a senator is speaking, no senator can pass his front or pass between chairs. When the President of the Senate is putting a question, that is section 55(7), no senator may walk out of or cross the floor of the Senate. When the question is being put, you are expected to be seated on your seat. Even to converse, to discuss amongst yourselves. When a senator is speaking, it has to be in very low tone so that you don't disturb the chambers. Then if you go to section 6, subsection 1, the President of the Senate shall allocate a seat to each senator. Sub 2 says, a senator may only speak from the seat allocated to him, provided that the President of the Senate may change that allocation from time to time. It's not me that made these rules. So even without giving reason of defection, decampment, or anything, the Senate President can observe, as they are calling me in the social media, headmaster. The headmaster can observe that two senators are too close and they are always discussing. And it says, in order to ensure the sanctity and decorum of the Senate, Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari moved to the next seat. You are too close to Sahabe Yao. You move to this other seat. And it must be obeyed. If you want to be a senator, please learn that this is our guiding principle. All the things that they are saying outside. Here, this book here gives the power to the Senate President to even suspend a senator for at least 14 legislative days without reference to any committee. And that means if we are sitting 3 times in a week, that comes to about 5 weeks without reference to any committee. And that stands. But on that day, you will notice that after we pleaded with her to speak from her seat, and she refused, I think our colleagues rushed to her and attempted to mute her microphone. I did not mute the microphone because, as at that day, we didn't have the capacity for the Senate President to mute the microphone from here because of the new installation we have here. Our colleagues went there and tried to mute the microphone to plead with her not to talk. But later on, I sent somebody from here to go and tell them to unmute the microphone so that she can ventilate her grievances. I wanted to hear why she would not move. But when I listened to what Senator Daramodu brought, I found out the reason why she did not obey the Senate standing order was because she wanted to position herself where the camera can see her. And so the standing orders of the Senate will not matter unless she sits where the cameras can see her. But I want to let you know that here is an instrument placed before the Senate President that the moment you press that you want to talk, it gives a signal here. So whether I see you directly by raising your hand or not, I will see you on the instrument before me. So there is no senator that is not covered here. There is no place that you speak from that the camera will not catch you. So I want to say that we have a motion on the floor. Distinguished Minority Leader, please, everybody should go back and study the rules very well so that we stop the idea of washing our dirty linen in public as if we are not guided by laws. We are lawmakers. We cannot also be lawbreakers. Yes.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Abba Moro. And I want to say that I rise to align myself completely with the submissions of the leader of the Senate. And Mr. President, to say that by the consensus of the senators here, that we align with the rules of the Senate and that the drama of the day in question was avoidable. Mr. President, I want to say that on that day, one of us
from our zone rose up here and openly apologized on behalf of our colleague from North Central on the behavior on the floor of the Senate of that day. Essentially because this is about the Senate, and this is about the leadership of the Senate. Mr. President, you may want to recall that in the 9th Senate that I was part of, due to some inexplicable reasons, and some persons who are here, especially the Sergeant at Arms, would have noticed that some reorganization took place, and they took me there, over there, where management staff and the cameras and the, I was the only person who, sorry, COVID. Okay, that's why I say for inexplicable reasons. You say COVID. Okay, COVID. Mr. President, I was taken there. I was the only one affected by the so-called COVID. So I sat there for months. Then one day I called Sergeant at Arms. I said, this place that I'm sitting there, because the camera was not taking me, because all the cameras were there. So the camera was not taking me, and I was not making contribution. I said, why now? Is this where you come and sit me here? And the seats behind were empty. Then I was struggling to go behind. But they sat me there for some time, but luckily they intervened and took me to the mainstream. This one belongs to opposition. This one belongs to majority party. That one, I don't know which one it belongs to, But on a more serious note, Mr. President, I still want to repeat the apology that was rendered that day, because our rules are there, and these rules are rules that must be obeyed. And so I agree completely, and I want my colleagues to agree completely too. Mr. President, we're sorry for what happened, because the Senate has been in the public domain for discussions that are definitely not for what we were elected here. And we can avoid this distraction. And like I said, we have committees, and one particular committee is responsible for detecting infractions of our rules and possible recommendations, even sanctions. But Mr. President, we see you as first one among equals, but the presiding officer of this Senate, and therefore the father of this Senate. In spite of some provocations, in spite of some offenses, Mr. President, we ask you to tolerate some of our actions that are not in tandem with democratic and parliamentary practices. These things once in a while will occur, but please, we want to ask that while we are referring this matter to a relevant committee, let us ponder on the drama that unfolded on that day and see how we can mitigate against the possible consequences on the integrity and the image of this institution so that we can move forward in the interest of this country. I so submit, Mr. President.
For the second, the motion that the matter should be referred to a committee. No, use your microphone.
I second the motion that this matter be referred to our Committee on Ethics and Public Petitions. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, by consensus, the Senate leader has moved a motion and has been seconded. Those in support that the disorderly conduct of our colleague, distinguished Senator Natasha Oduagan, we referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges for necessary further action, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the matter is hereby referred to the Committee on Ethics and Privileges and Committee on Conduct, Code of Conduct, Ethics and of course, and Public Petitions. Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions, headed by distinguished Senator Njenje Media, to look into it and advise the Senate, revert to us within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Well, Mr. President and very distinguished colleagues, since there was no motion for us to extend our sitting time today, I am rising to move that the Senate be now adjourned. However, in doing that, let me also place on record that it is the understanding of the leadership of the two chambers, as both the Senate and the House of Representatives, that a significant part of this week should be devoted to the public hearing and other necessary activities centered around a thorough understanding of the tax reform bills pending before the two chambers. And in view of this, the House of Representatives, as a matter of fact, will not be resuming sitting until next week. So I am rising to move that this Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, no, Wednesday. Okay, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, rising to move that the Senate be now adjourned till Wednesday, the 5th day of March 2025 at 11 a.m. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second for the reasons adduced by the leader that this Senate adjourns to 5th March at 11 a.m. for further legislative actions. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved and seconded. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. We resume on the 5th day of March 2025 at 11 a.m. prompt. Slight announcement is delegation to Bauchi State on condolence. Senator Ahmed Lawan will be chairman. Senator Abdul Ningi, Senator Smaila Kaila, Senator Tony Woye, Senator Shehu Boba, and Senator Jimo Ibrahim.